Good afternoon. My name is Dolor, and I'm sitting in for Calix George Jr., and you are in the lunchroom. As always, I start with the four principles that guide the discourse and discussions that we will have over the course of the program. We start at one, we end at two. Principle number one, nothing is absolute. Number two, reality is composed by the individual. Number three, cultural influences more often than not determine our actions and our reactions. Principle number four, the supernatural does not exist. I now move on to events that occurred on this date in history, this day in history. And of course, we're looking at the 27th of February. And although we are in 2025, we shall be looking at a number of activities or events that occurred in history. In 1816, the Dutch regained Suriname from the French after the defeat of Napoleon. Of course, it is said that when you are very famous, you don't need a second name. So once we hear Napoleon, we know we are talking about Napoleon Bonaparte. Here is an interesting one that for me was revealing. On this day, 27th of February, in 1844, the Dominican Republic gained independence from Haiti. Yes, you heard that right. Haiti actually had taken over Dominican Republic. In fact, they took over in 1822, and in 1844, the Dominican Republic, the people from the Dominican Republic regained their land. In 1869, John Maynard became the first African American to make a speech in the U.S. Congress. In 1872, in Charlotte Bay, the first African American woman became the first African woman to become a lawyer, was actually graduating from Howard University. In 1900, the Trade Unions Congress and the Independent Labor Movement met in London, resulting in a Labor Representative Committee and eventually the modern UK Labour Party in 1906. In 1922, USA Supreme Court unanimously upheld the 19th Amendment, which says that the woman has a right to vote. In 1998, Britain's House of Lords agreed to end the 1,000-year habit of giving the male child precedence to become the monarch. So let me read that again. In 1998, Britain's House of Lords agreed to end the 1,000 year of male precedence by giving a monarch firstborn daughter the same claim to the throne as any other firstborn. In other words, the same as a firstborn son. In 2018, Barbra Streisand revealed that her dog had been cloned twice. In 2019, the smallest baby boy ever born to be successfully released goes home on that. He went home on that date. At original birth, he was 9.45 ounces. Incidentally, that record has since been eclipsed because in 2020, on June the 9th, Kwek Wan was born in Singapore weighing 7.5 ounces. Eventually, she left the hospital a year and a month later. That child, Kwek Wan, was actually taken by cesarean section at just over 24 months. So, in fact, that causes us to understand that, in actual fact, just after 24 months, a child can be viable. And it is little wonder that many of the abortion laws are related to 24, after 24 weeks of pregnancy, the child becomes viable. So these were some of the events that happened in history on this date, and we will now go to the daily dish. Our daily dish today.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
For our daily dish, we tie two things that is critical because we are looking at AI and we're saying that we are noting that as AI becomes increasingly accessible, the adoption has surged across industries from healthcare to finance. This surge in adoption is mirrored by malicious actors who are also taking advantage of these advances. Criminals now use AI powered tools such as Worm GPT and Ghost GPT to automate attacks, generate convincing phishing emails, and even create malware without the need for technical expertise. The widespread availability of such tools has escalated the cybercrime landscape, making it easier than ever for bad actors to exploit AI for malicious purposes and posing a growing challenge for cybersecurity professionals. GhostGPT, for example, is an uncensored AI chatbot designed specifically for cyber criminals. Unlike mainstream AI models such as ChatGPT, which have built-in safety mechanisms to prevent harmful use, GhostGPT operates without these restrictions. By bypassing ethical guardrails, this chat box provides unfiltered answers to sensitive or harmful queries, making it a powerful tool for criminal minds seeking to enhance their operations. And we will see in a little while why this is so important because most of the times it is the consumers who are taken advantage of by those cyber criminals. And now that they have AI tools available to them, we can expect that there will be a lot more of that happening. They will become more sophisticated. It will be harder to detect them, and there will be even more need for organizations that seek to protect consumers. That was your daily dish for today.
This has been the Daily Dish.
Welcome back. And let me welcome specifically Dr. Tekla Fitz-Lewis, who is the president of the St. Lucia National Consumers Association. Welcome, Tekla.
Thank you so much.
And how are you doing today?
I am good.
You're good?
Yes, I am.
So you tell me something about your organization. Just give us a rundown. Speak openly to an open mic, as sometimes they say, and we will discuss what some of the things that you have raised afterwards. Let me just say that in the news, I think it was last week, there was a press release from your organization concerning a particular situation, and I'm sure you will address that eventually. But go ahead, and you have an open mic.
Okay, so the NCA, which is the acronym for National Consumer Association of St. Lucia, is an advocacy organization who seeks to find redress for consumers, and every one of us are consumers. Persons are under the impression that the Consumer Association is only a closed group. No, everybody who purchase or consume a product or a service is a consumer. And our association really advocates on their behalf. For example, the NCA was very instrumental in early 2000, speaking to the enactment of a law for consumers in St. Lucia, because um, business places and providers of goods and services took advantage of consumers and their purchases. And in 2016, under the Kennedy Anthony administration, they started the process of putting together an act, a Consumer Protection Act. Um, and it really came into fruition in 2022. And that act have 3 R's that business places or providers of goods and services should respect. Those 3 R's are replace, refund, or repay. And many consumers do not know their rights, but the NCA has been on a campaign to assist the public and consumers at large in understanding what are their rights and responsibilities and what are their choices. And increasingly, we speak out to things that are contrary to the act. For example, one of our first mandate was identifying business places who have a sign by the cash register saying no refund. That's contrary to the act. And we are also working assiduously with the Department of Consumer Affairs in ensuring that the consumer officers who visit business places ensure that we do not have some of these discrepancies. You cannot have a sign saying no refund when the Act of January 2022, which was passed in Parliament, states that a consumer have free choices. If they purchase or procure your goods or services, you either refund if you do not have what the consumer wants, you repair if it's repairable, or you replace. So why we here is really speaking of a new trend in persons procuring vehicles from overseas suppliers to these vehicles. And in 60% of the cases, actually transfer their funds to somebody they do not know, have not seen, have been communicating with them via either email or WhatsApp. And when they have paid for a vehicle, then the communication stops and they never find their money. So we really want to educate persons on their choices, because whilst you have rights where you have refund, repair, or replace, you also have a choice in how you make a decision to spend your hard-earned money. So the Consumer Association really helps with the education, the advocacy, helping persons understand their responsibilities, their rights, and also their choices. And we really, Mr. Dolor, there is really strength in numbers. And I mean, with a small core, the NCA was able to advocate and rally the government of St. Lucia to really put an act in place that can protect us as consumers, because St. Lucia, or should I say the NCA, is part of the global consumer association called Consumer International. Consumer International is the mother organization for all consumer rights, and they work directly with the UN in ensuring that rights and responsibilities, people are not disadvantaged or disenchanted in the procurement of their goods and services. So we want to ensure that we really educate the public. We let persons know what their rights are. 3 weeks ago, we had a webinar where we were speaking about the trade wars. Since the implementation of Donald Trump as the new president of the United States, you know that he has signed several executive orders that really impacts us in the developing countries. So that webinar was a really empowered one. it's something that we opened out to the general public and not just our members. So, and of course, we will be continuing those conversations to ensure we can really reach out to the fabric of our society and let them know what their rights are and encourage persons to become members of the NCA because, of course, you have strength in numbers. We have seen several disadvantageous activities done by some of our supermarket chains, some of our private sector organizations, which should not happen. But again, there is strength in numbers, and working collaboratively with the Department of Consumer Affairs and with a lot of support from the Ministry of Commerce, I know we can make a difference. But of course, we need persons to understand that the Consumer Association is not a closed group. It's every St. Lucian who is willing to see a change, to be part of the change, and to effect the change.
Okay, let me seek some clarification. You are the National Consumers Association, NCA.
Yes.
And you spoke about the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
How do these two organizations, entities, if you wish, how do they interact? Where would you go to first? How does what you do impact whether you go to NCA or you go to the Consumer Affairs?
Okay, I'm happy you said that. Now, there are several groups that are responsible for consumer issues. For example, the Bureau of Standard, the St. Lucia Bureau of Standard, is one entity that takes care of consumer complaints.
Okay.
When it comes to weights, when it comes to labels, for example, you go to a pharmacy and everything is in Spanish or it's in Chinese. Now, we are not saying that the suppliers cannot bring in things in Spanish, but it must be converted in English because we're in the English-speaking Caribbean. So, for example, Bureau of Standards' responsibility is to ensure from the port that these items are in a language that you can understand. They would ensure the metrology issues, for example, the weights. Weights. Yes. You cannot buy fish by the market, 5 pounds of fish, but you really got 4.5 pounds because they manipulated the scale. So that would be St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. Mm-hmm. When it comes to telecommunications, you have NTRC, National Telecommunication Regulatory Commission. They are responsible for dealing with any issues you may have with our telecommunication providers. So that's your next step. Then you have NUC, which is National Utilities Regulatory Commission. They would deal with the utility providers, for example, electricity and water. Mm-hmm. And you have the NCA, which really is the advocacy group. It's the association where if you have an issue, you can come to the NCA to say you had X and Y issue. But the NCA would refer whatever your issue is to the Department for Consumer Affairs. Okay. Because the Department of Consumer Affairs also have a consumer lawyer. An attorney is there, mm-hmm. where they can assist with the issue. They would be the focal point to actually go to the merchant or the supplier of whatever goods or service that you have an issue with. If for that reason there cannot be any consensus, then they would take it to the Consumer Council. The Consumer Council is like a court. Okay. They would sit on these issues, bring the parties together and try to get redress. If for some reason that cannot happen, then it goes to the tribunal. So the Consumer Association really makes it's like a focal point for persons who do not want to go to the public sector, which is the consumer affairs. So they would come to us. If it's an issue, you bought a pair of shoes from a store to go to a wedding, but as soon as you wore that shoe or enter the church, the heel broke, the shoe unstuck because probably it was dry rot for some time. And you come to the National Consumer Association Secretariat in Sanssouci, right opposite Lucilec on the highway. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have a consumer affairs officer who would call the merchant and explain what your situation is, or go with you to the merchant to explain the situation. If there is no redress at that initial stage, we refer the matter to the Consumer Affairs Department. So there are some cases that we can directly deal with, and there are some cases that we would refer, because there is a complaint form which we fill in, and we know our limits as an association, because do not forget we're an advocacy group. We are not the ones to make all the corrections and to make all the decisions. That is done by the Consumer Affairs Department.
Okay.
But there are some stages we can start the process and then refer it to the Consumer Affairs Division.
Okay. That's very, very useful information. But just to be sure, so when we speak about the Lucy Lake building, are we talking? We may be talking about the John Compton Highway.
The John Compton Highway.
Yeah,
So the
because-
National Consumer Association office is on the John Compton Highway, just opposite the old Lucy Lake building where
Yes.
persons would have gone to pay their bills.
Right.
Or opposite the gas station.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because-
Same building with the Senusha Planned Parenthood.
Okay. So because right now the electricity department
Is in
Lucy Lake-
Sanssouci,
is in
Carrie Lake.
Sanssouci,
Right.
Right. By
No,
Carrie Lake.
not that building.
Not bad building. So we need to be
Clear.
absolutely clear on that.
Yes.
You mentioned the question of having a lawyer, and you said that there is a lawyer associated with the Consumer Affairs Consumer Affairs Department.
Yes. The Ministry of Commerce has a legal officer.
Mhm.
So that legal officer would be dealing with some of the issues on consumer complaints.
Mhm.
And of course, in the consumer tribunal is also a legal officer or an attorney
Yes.
who can guide the tribunal of these cases.
Now, but one
So one does not have to pay for legal advice if they have an issue to deal with.
Okay.
The government provides that to the consumer for free.
Okay. In addition to that, in the Consumer Protection Act, there is provision is made for alternative dispute resolution methods, for example, mediation.
Right.
How then would somebody go about effecting that or making use of mediation if they have something to be redressed?
That's where the Consumer Affairs Department comes.
Okay.
They would be the one handling. They would determine if it needs to go to mediation, how it can be redressed, because of course they have all the competencies and the skills in there to deal with that.
Got you. Got you.
Yes.
So
There are actually trained consumer affairs officers, and of course the legal officer would guide them.
So in terms of the St. Lucia, other than membership, which I suspect would be one of your biggest challenges, what would be some of the other challenges that you face as an association?
As an association, well, like you said, membership, because of course, as an association, you need to have some
And you need to have numbers.
some form of
Mhm.
capital injection
Okay.
to be able to assist with persons and their issues. For example, we have a consumer affairs officer who is stationed at the NCA Secretariat 5 days a week from 8 to 4:30, where persons can walk in, where we can give them the guidance as what is the next step and what can they do. As an association, we also organize educational sessions. As I indicated earlier, we had a webinar,
Mhm.
and that webinar was free to the public to attend so that they can be empowered and they can understand how the trade wars will impact us as a nation, as a country, and as a Caribbean community. So, of course, when you have members and you're able to do these things, you can organize more events and activities, because every event and an activity is a cost. For example, there are some activities we would like to have face-to-face, where we actually bring in persons and dissect the Consumer Protection Act so they can understand. We would also like to have sessions with a lot of the business places we realize that operate contrary to the act. And other activities where you can have engagement among members. We do get a subvention from government, which is a plus for us, because of course we have monthly expenses in maintaining the secretariat that we have to do. But as an association, we also have to have our own independence and less reliance, because we saw formerly how some organizations lost subventions and they had to struggle.
Mhm.
We do not want that to be a situation with NCA, because we believe the association is a needed, not a want, a needed service to the general public, because you will always have unscrupulous persons taking advantage of the system, and the consumer is the one who will feel the brunt of the action that they would have. For example, the government of St. Lucia have seen it necessary to ensure that consumer members of the consumer association sit on certain boards. For example, 2 members of the consumer association gets to sit on the consumer council.
Okay.
1 member of the consumer association gets to sit on the consumer tribunal.
Mm-hmm.
A member of the consumer association gets to sit on the Millennium Heights Medical Complex. So that person can advocate on behalf of consumers, things that would affect the general public when it comes to healthcare. So, I mean, of course, it is powerful when, as an association, you have members who can represent you in places where you need to have a voice. And we try to look at what are the skill sets in our membership, because we do not want to have the same faces making the representation all the time. We want to ensure that different persons can come in with different ideas where it can be more impactful and we can grow. We do not want, when it comes to elections, we can hardly find persons, because there was one year we had elections and the skill sets we had on the executive was very poor. It was not anything to advance the executive further in trying to keep the association together. When I became president in 2022, it was like there were 2 political parties in the NCA. One political party, the NCA, was their secretariat, and other persons were fighting. And then we had to bring structure. It was a case where there was barely persons wanting to give to their services, because, of course, it's an association where you do not get any form of compensation, but the satisfaction of knowing that you stand up for persons who cannot stand up for themselves. And you can speak out for persons who do not have a voice. So now I believe, I am opined, that we have an executive with the necessary skill sets that we need to drive the association forward. For example, we have a general secretary who is very administrative, very structured. When it comes to projects and putting policies in place, she's very good at that. We have whoever does our volunteered to be the treasurer. You're very meticulous when it comes to figures and how you do things and how you can spend and how you can save and what activities you can put together to make the association run. We have 2 trustees who are like the watchdogs for the public. This is what we would like to have. So, when you have these skill sets, it's very important, but there must be continuity. So we really want to attract persons who really feel passionate about some of the disadvantages that we as consumers face when we walk into certain merchants in St. Lucia. We have to stand up for St. Lucians. We have to stand up for St. Lucian manufacturers and providers of services. And we have to stand up for persons who cannot stand up for themselves.
So you have a major task ahead,
Yes.
and continuing. It would seem that, and I must take the opportunity to even talk about the Mediators Forum for St. Lucia.
Yes.
In a sense that with some of the things that you mentioned there, surely we as a fledgling organization ourselves, because we were incorporated about a year and a half ago, it would seem to me that we would certainly want to get some discussion with your group, given that you have been at it for a while and you have those kinds of the skill set, project management, and so on, that would certainly help our cause. There are a few things that I want to ask you about in terms of some of the things you have said. But what I'm going to do is we will go to the weather, which is at 1:30. We will take the weather. When we come back, we will open up the lines, and we will and I will, of course, ask you some of the questions that I want to ask, because we've raised a lot of things there.
Wonderful. Now time for a look at the latest weather report at this time, brought to you with the compliments of Island Style Tile and Bath.
Island Style. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We're insects, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
Absolutely now time for the weather report as of 12 noon today. It's the 27th of February 2025 and our forecast of the South Lucius Frederick. The forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east, southeast and the east near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour. The weather, fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few light to moderate showers. Again, the winds blowing between the east, southeast and the east near 18 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour with the weather, fair skies becoming cloudy at times with a few light to moderate showers. On to the marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. For the Castries Harbour, high tide will be experienced at 27 after 3 this afternoon. The low tide will be at 19 minutes before 10 tonight. And the Vieux Bay's high tide will be at 26 minutes, before 5 o'clock this afternoon. And the low tide will be at 8 minutes after 11 tonight. The seas are moderate to locally rough. The waves 4 to 7 feet, the same as 1.2 to 2.1 meters in open waters. Small craft operators, sea bathers, you are advised to exercise caution due to above normal seas. Now please be guided. On now to the marine forecast the forecast for the Lesser Antilles rather. Fair to partly cloudy skies with scattered light to moderate showers. And the weather summary indicates unstable conditions associated with a weak low-level trough will cause some cloudy periods with showers over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And the Atlantic high-pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and above normal seas across the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. So again, a recap of the weather summary. Unstable conditions associated with a weak low-level trough will cause some cloudy periods with showers over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And the Atlantic high-pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and above normal seas across the Eastern Caribbean during the next few days. So that's the official weather report. Remember, an advisory for small craft operators and seabathers to exercise caution due to above normal seas. So please be guided. Thank you very much for the update, Lucius. Join us again in the morning at around 7 thereabout. We'll have another official report during the station from the Met Service. The weather was made possible by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, we'll have to make the right choice. Island Style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style.
We have tiles and insects, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style Car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality rice, service choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
Good afternoon again. Just in case you join us since we started, you are in the lunchroom with me, Urban Dolor, and I'm sitting in for Calix George Jr. We have with us a very special guest today, Dr. Thekla Fitzlouis, and she is from, of course, the National Consumers Association, which is an advocacy group made up of regular members who do a number of things to protect consumers. Thekla, I read I can call you Tekla, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
That's my name.
Because that's your name. So, and that's how I got someone calling you. So if you say I have to call the other names you have there,
No, that's
because
okay.
I will get confused, and you don't want me confused. Um, we we started off by looking at what I can call a scam, huh? A
Yeah.
scam, and we need to be we need to ensure that as people have rights, every right comes with a responsibility.
Right.
And so I would be happy if you can, in fact, talk to that responsibility that consumers have, so that they can take the first steps to protect themselves. Because as we always say, protection better than compensation.
Right.
So all that after 3 hours, so if you protect yourself, you might not need any. There might not be any need for either repair,
Okay.
re-
Refund
or
or replace.
replace. Yeah. So talk to us as it relates to that aspect of it, which is another R, responsibility.
Okay. Responsibility. First, let consumers know that one of the areas they need to take responsibility with our topic today is in dealing with car dealers, especially for those overseas. The NCA can assist consumers who experience these issues, particularly in situations where the consumers have paid, because you must pay for the vehicle in advance before it gets to St. Lucia, right? In some cases, they receive lesser than the value or no vehicle at all. Now, a consumer has a responsibility. Sometimes, as consumers, we are very reactive and not proactive. That's where we lose our responsibility, or we are very impulsive. We do not utilize our choice. Choices come with responsibilities as well. Now, the NCA, as part of its responsibility to the public, we offer mediation and dispute resolution. Whilst the NCA can act as an intermediary between the consumer and the car dealer to resolve the dispute, there must be some form of communication, negotiation on behalf of both parties to work towards a fair resolution. However, do not forget that the Consumer Affairs Department of the Ministry of Commerce is the go-to
Agency.
since there is a legal officer attached to that department. We can assist them with filing complaints. If a consumer has been defrauded or misled, the NCA can help them formally file the complaints with the Consumer Affairs Department to ensure that they can get some form of redress. We can help them with legal guidance and support. And that legal, although the NCA does not provide any legal representation, but however, we can direct those concerns to the Consumer Affairs Department, who we work very collaboratively with. The Consumer Association will continue to have public awareness and advocacy to be able to help consumers identify patterns of unfair practices. And especially in our topic today, where we're looking at the amount of complaints we have received from persons who purchase vehicles from overseas car dealers that they have never met or they have never seen. Now, it's one thing to deal with a local car dealer in St. Lucia, that you have a building, you have a face, you have an agent, the customer service person. It's another thing to have to deal with somebody who you've never seen, or you do not know that you can have any contact with them at all. We can assist consumers with consumer education, where we provide educational materials and workshops. And part of our educational materials is where we have paraphernalia that, or should we call them brochures for persons who do not understand my terminology, where we can give them so they understand their rights and their responsibilities. And we also collaborate with the necessary authorities like NERC, if you have a problem with a utility company, like NTRC, if you have a problem with the telecommunications company, and if you have other issues where, as I gave an example earlier. You buy a medication from a drugstore, it's in Spanish.
Mhm.
You cannot understand what it is. St. Lucia Bureau of Standards would be who we would collaborate with or who we can refer you with. But persons need to understand their responsibilities, because responsibilities, as I said, come with a choice. You have to be responsible for the dollar that you spend. You have to be able to make choices as to where and how, because we all have a choice. Don't say that fisherman selling 5 sardines for $2 and another one have it for 6, and you're busy quarreling with the man if he's 5. Your choice is to go to the one with the 6. So you cannot come to NC and say somebody selling 5 sardines for $2 and another one selling for 6. Buy the one from the one selling for the 6, because it is your responsibility to make a choice as to how you're going to spend your money. And we have to be responsible as consumers. So you go to the supermarket and you see a few fruits and it's rotten, but you want the fruit so badly you'll buy it. And then you'll come back and complain. Your responsibility is to buy things that will give you value for your money. Your responsibility is to go where you can make a choice as to how you're going to spend your dollar. Your responsibility, you go to the pharmacy, it's in Spanish, don't buy it, because you will not be able to understand how you use it. So we have to be responsible as consumers.
But Tegla, let me tell you, quite frankly, I didn't understand the car thing properly.
Mm-hmm.
It did not occur to me that people were sending their money sending the money overseas.
Yeah.
But in all fairness, Jose, I mean, you don't know the person, right? You just perhaps saw an ad on Facebook or on the net, and you will take your money and just send it. But then that, because I thought that there were problems, that and that might very well be a problem where consumers give somebody money in St. Lucia, so the person may have given money to me. I mean, to get a car for them, and the car that I promised them, I didn't get that car for them. I got another car, or when the car came, it had a lot of problems and so on. I thought that is what we were talking about. But if you're going to send your money overseas to somebody that you have, when you said never met and so on, it dawned on me. But I mean, we really ought not to be doing that. And there are a number of other scams that happen. And I'm sure we can talk about some of them as we go along. By the way, let me see that the number to call is 452-3046 if you're calling regular phone, and if you want to use the WhatsApp, the number to call WhatsApp is 758-724-0008. So the numbers are 452-3046 and 724-0008. Taylor, I wanted to ask you if you want to offer one of the major problems or one of the major issues that was discussed in the webinar, which spoke about the kinds of impact the trade wars would have on us in St. Lucia. Is there any one in particular you want to mention, or all of them are so critical that you prefer people to get them?
All of them are very critical, but what was more critical for us is the cost of goods and services that redounds from.
Break it down.
Okay, so for example, now that Donald Trump having all these issues, all these tariffs, executive orders, and he put all these tariffs on China and everybody else, that is going to affect us in the Caribbean. The simplest thing that has become a problem. A lot of persons have been ordering from Shein because, online shopping is the big thing.
Yes.
So they've been ordering from Shein and Temu. With those tariffs imposed, it's going to make the cost of these goods more expensive. And some of the carriers are not going to bring them to our part of the world. And if they do, it will be so costly, it's not going to be economically viable. And of course, do not forget, Shein and Temu, they really catered for the low-income bracket person. Somebody who cannot walk into a boutique to buy a dress for $600 when they can get it on Shein. It looks the same. it feels the same. The quality may not be the same, but you're looking for look, you're looking for style, you would get it on those platforms.
But
Those tariffs would affect us.
but let me just stick up in there.
Mhm.
We appreciate that sometimes the scam is to offer goods that are not genuine, and you are charged maybe a slightly less value than the genuine thing,
Mhm.
and that's a scam too, eh?
Yes, it is.
So we have to be careful in terms of what we are buying. So, for example, there was a time when I am laughing because the scam was on me.
Mhm.
So I went overseas and I saw some Mobler pens, and I like my pens, so I bought Mobler. So I said, wow, this thing's very well priced. Only to find out that these were absolute fakes. So that in about 2 months, the pen, the little the Mobler have a little starfish thing on the top.
Right.
Yeah, that became
It started
black.
peeling out.
Started
Oh,
peeling out.
Jesus.
So in actual fact, that is something we have to be mindful of as well. Eh?
Mhm.
So if we are going to be buying a product that normally costs a thousand or 200, or let me stick to a figure. This is something that would normally cost $200,
Mhm.
and you're now getting it for $20. Be aware. Again, be aware that this is likely to be a scam. You're not
Mhm.
likely that something from $200 will come down to 20.
Right.
So that I wanted to make that point as it relates to a different form of scam. Yeah, but you were making the excellent and very valuable point that the tariffs that Donald Trump is now going to be placing on goods coming from China
Mhm.
would have a direct impact on us. Because, for example, some people may get the things from Amazon. So even
Right.
if you don't get it directly from the Chinese people,
Right.
you might get it from Amazon.
Amazon.
And if Amazon is going to bring it in, the tariffs will definitely be on it.
Of course.
So that's an important point.
For example, you were talking about a scam when we spoke about online shopping.
Yes.
In all fairness to those online stores, you have opportunities where you can read of different persons' references,
Yes.
what they said about the product. So you have to make an informed decision as a buyer.
Yes.
So I wouldn't see Shein or Temu or Amazon as a scam.
No.
They actually tell you what the products are made of. For example, if you're going to buy a dress, they said 5% spandex, 5% nylon. If you're not sure, you Google,
Mhm.
because consumers can make an informed decision.
That's an
Most
important
times we
thing.
do not make decisions and we just
No, we do not make informed decisions.
we do not make informed decisions and then we put the blame game. But you were laughing at it. Yes, we do currently have an issue where a consumer purchased a vehicle for over $40,000, sent his bank draft in full to a car dealer overseas, and all of a sudden he have pictures of the vehicle, the make, the model, the everything of that particular vehicle, but has never seen the vehicle, and it's almost 2 years now. The Consumer Affairs Division has taken that issue and has tried to reach the dealer. All of a sudden, the number was bogus, or it only worked for a while.
Mhm.
Nobody responds to the email address, so all of a sudden the email address has been cancelled or deleted.
Mhm.
Of course, they're trying other mediums to see, because the money went to an account. The account definitely was not bogus. So the bank, at the receiving end, would be able to tell if that account belonged to Jim Jones or otherwise. So they're using their network to be able to get down to that bottom line of where that bank draft was received, because it was received through a corresponding bank
Yes.
and it went to an account. But apart from getting that information, the situation is doomed. And people do that because these scammers, these vehicle dealer scammers from overseas, they sell you some glowing, um, glowing deals. I used to get some information. I never dealt with an overseas car dealer before.
Mhm.
I go direct to a local dealer where I can hold somebody locally accountable.
Yes.
I go straight to you and I know that's who I'm dealing with. I have seen BMWs for $120,000. We're talking about 2023 and 2024 model. What world are we living in? Somebody saying that wouldn't know that have to be a scam.
But that's the point you're making. That's the point we're making, and I think this program is making is emphasizing and focusing on ensuring that when you see a deal that is so good,
Too good to be true.
it is usually not true. That's the point. That's the point. That's the point. And you know, I mean, for me, I am concerned that solutions you know, use their money, hard-earned money, for things like that. You know, to send across $40,000 to a company that you don't know, that they don't have a representative in St. Lucia and that sort of thing.
Nothing.
To me that is highly irresponsible.
Very irresponsible. Consumers need to make informed decisions. You must take responsibility for your action. Now, the Consumer Affairs Association is not established to take people's responsibility for them. We will advocate on your behalf. We will ensure you get your rights. We will ensure that you can make a choice, but you have to be able to take responsibility for your action. Because when I saw that case come through,
Yes.
I mean, it was appalling that somebody would send so much money and then the communication ended.
But that's a chair. You know, the close have a word. That's a chair. I mean, that's something to break one's heart.
Anybody had. I mean, of course, it was the person's hard-earned money. We're not sure if they took a loan or what it was.
Yes, but
it
whether they loan or otherwise, they have to pay it. As a matter of fact, if it's a loan, it's even worse because it means they now have to pay the interest on the loan. And all
they're
that.
not right, you know, and of course, the Consumer Affairs Division is trying to go through, you know, those little hurdles to be able to see from the end, the end product, what it is. But we want persons to be able to be responsible
and be knowledgeable. Like
and
you
be
said,
knowledgeable.
like you said, I mean, some of the things, if you're not sure, you can check.
I'll give you a simple example. When I go to the supermarket, for me, it's a line. Every single product I buy, I look for the expiry date.
Yes.
That's my responsibility.
That's your responsibility.
Whilst the store owner should ensure that their merchandisers and the person stocking the shelf should at some point put a sale on the goods that will be expiring in the next 2 weeks, in the next month, me as a consumer have a responsibility to check the expiry date. I walked into a supermarket once and there were items that were expired amongst items that had 2-year expiry date. And when I pick up one, I called to one of the attendants. I said, but this product has expired since December. And at the time, I was shopping in April. Now, I know expiry dates, they say best before.
Yes.
But some items, you can at least use them 3 months after the expiry date.
That's important to know.
But we were talking about 4 months. So that product definitely would not be good.
Not definitely, but I get your point. The point you're making is useful, yes.
And I brought it to her attention and she said she's going to bring it to the manager. I said, before you bring it, let me take a picture of the date. And she said, no, you cannot take a picture of the date. And I understood why, but I had already taken a picture of the date.
Okay.
And she brought it to the manager. And I said, when the manager came out, if a little cocky and arrogant, I said, there is no need for the arrogance and the cockiness. I had a responsibility as a consumer to check the expiry date on something that I am buying.
Yes.
But you have the responsibility as the store owner to ensure that your merchandisers or your storekeepers check that those goods will be expired so they can put it on sale or they can remove it off the shelf if they have passed the expiry or best before used date.
And I would be very surprised, for example, if those inventory systems that these modern inventory systems that they have now, that these systems do not automatically flag items that are going to be expired by a given date, so that they don't even have to go to the shelf, because the computers and the programs now will show you what is expired and what, you know, at a given time. But that's so important.
But you know, one of the things we want to tell the general public,
yes,
we embarking on an initiative where we're going to start a database of bad actors, unscrupulous companies,
yes,
so consumers can check the rating of businesses to help the consumer make an informed decision. So if we know you went to buy something from that particular store, they sold you something there where it was faulty, they did not want to take it back. We have a database of that, because what we want to start doing as an NCA,
Wow.
to put a tag, a sticker on organizations who really comply to the Consumer Protection Act.
Yes.
They
yes,
are
yes.
in compliance. So there is
Yes.
a sticker. So when you go to that company, that supermarket, that store, you can say, wow, these people are in compliance,
Yes.
and you can shop. And we're going to make that an initiative that we're going to inform the public. So you go in, you find that sticker there.
Mhm.
You know they're in compliance. You know they operate well.
Especially
And-
if they could go on the website or whatever and
Right.
get that
So
kind
it
of
gives you
information.
confidence. Now, that particular organization can even stick that flyer, that brochure, that sticker,
Yes.
that logo, that emblem on their website. So persons looking through can say, well, yes, I am shopping with an organization, a store, a supermarket
Yes.
that complies, that respects the Consumer Protection Act, because we have several of those situations in St. Lucia where
Yes.
there are some stores that sell you faulty items. They know it is faulty, but they stick up a sign, no refund, no return.
Yes.
Excuse me?
And the repair
They could
neither.
have done that
And the
before.
repair.
And no repay. They could have done that prior to the 2022 Consumer Protection Act, which was enacted by the current government.
By the current government. You know, the point that you make there, as it relates to identifying organizations, business places that are in compliance, is a useful one. I say that because I know, and I suspect, obviously, that it is that is a better approach, a very, very good approach in terms of knowing where that is good, rather than having to identify where it's bad. The reason I say that is because sometimes you do not want to label one organization as not being good, as not being compliant, and so on and so on, because then that can have some serious implications in terms of for their business, in terms of libel and defamation and so on. So that these are some of the things that that we're looking at. One area that many people are not aware of and should be very aware of is the whole business of certificate mills. That's another big scam where people and I say this because as an educator I've been aware of some cases where people get certificates from organizations that are not bona fide.
True.
And what it does is it basically you spend a certain amount of money and all you get is a piece of paper that's worth nothing, right? And in the spirit of of providing people with additional information, I wanted to use the opportunity. I want to use the opportunity to let people know that the Ministry of Education has a database, right? And they will tell you which of the organizations that they actually that's properly certified, so that you can know that if you get a certificate from from that organization, from that institution, that it will be recognized by the Ministry of Education.
Very important.
Right? And so we don't want a situation where people simply pay money and they get a run-of-the-mill thing that is not authentic. So I wanted to take the opportunity now that you're here for me to raise that.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. Totally.
But at the end of it all, Tekla, I think a critical thing, and that is where that is where it starts in terms of protecting yourself. The most important person to protect yourself is you.
I agree.
You understand?
I agree.
And it has to do with the responsibility. I mean, if you get something on your phone which says that you're lucky today, today's your lucky day, you won $100,000 from MasterCard. You don't have MasterCard, it's Visa you have, and they say to you, okay, to clear things out, you have to send $100 for the paperwork, 100 US for the paperwork, and you're going to go and look for $270 of your money to send it to these people because they told you that you won $100,000 on a MasterCard lotto, lottery, that you don't have MasterCard.
Sure.
I mean, there's so many of these scams that I find it difficult for people. I don't understand why people have to fall for them.
I know, but when one of the things as an NCA, we think we can assist as an example of the overseas car dealers.
Yes.
What we plan to do is to maintain a list of those that have been proven to scam
Yes.
people.
Oh, to scam people, yeah.
So
Yes,
if
yes,
you
yes.
are planning to buy any vehicle overseas, we can tell you the dealer has had free claims against them for
Yes.
not delivering.
Right.
So we have that database and we
Mhm.
can help you. So
And-
we actually providing that service, not just for our members,
Okay.
but for the general public. You want
Okay.
to buy a vehicle from overseas? You come to the NCA.
Mhm.
We have a list. We will tell you who the scammers are, run for the hills,
Mhm.
and we will tell you who are the bona fide persons.
And that is important. I wanted to make sure that we have that bona fide, because very often we're very quick to tell people what not to do.
Right.
But we're not so quick to we're not so comfortable telling them what
What
to do.
to do.
And
I
we have
agree
to
with
get
you.
to the point where we tell them you can go there. And that's why with the compliance thing, I'm so happy that you have the situation where you say these are the people who have complied.
Yes.
You know, and so we're taking up positive position
Mhm.
rather than the negative
Yes.
one. Yeah?
Because you have to be proactive. And we don't want to be an institution that only get problems.
Yes.
We want
yes.
to be an institution that give you solutions.
That's correct.
Because we have a society where they only focus on the problems, but not on the solutions. We only focus on the problems, not the solutions. But I want to bring the point that the National Association of St. Lucia, it is really a non-profit organization
Yes.
dedicated to promoting consumer awareness
Okay.
and
Yes.
protecting consumer rights. That's very important to us. Protecting
In
consumer rights.
Mhm.
We want to focus on advocacy and education to empower consumers across the nations. And that's why we tell persons we advocate for consumer rights. You need to be part of that movement. We educating consumers. You need to be part of that movement. We resolve complaints.
Mhm.
We need persons to be part of that movement. We have the facility, we have the competencies, and of course, we have the support of the Consumer Affairs Department through the Ministry of Commerce. And of course, we have meetings with the minister where
Yes.
she listens to some of those issues, Minister Honorable Emma Hippolyte.
Yes.
She's very concerned about what is the concern of consumers. As a matter of fact, several of her officers in the ministry are members of the National
NCA.
Consumer
Okay,
Association,
great.
including herself.
Okay.
So you call that leadership by example.
Mhm.
So we really want persons to be able to, there is that grouping that can assist you. Come educate yourself.
Definitely. And that sounds like final words. So I wouldn't even bother to ask you for final words, because these were very final words. Well, folks, listeners, you heard us speak about the whole question of the role of the NCA. Very importantly, that the NCA is about advocacy, educating, and making ensuring that you can exercise your rights. They also, in fact, serve as a body to channel complaints to the right places. So we didn't know that there were so many different organizations. I didn't know. I should say that there were so many different places to go for complaints of a different kind. I enjoyed your discussion and your educating.
Thank
And
you.
look forward to being with you sometime in the future. I used to be in the NCA, but I think that's in time of Antoine and so
Right.
each of them fellas.
Yes.
So, but I have to get back. I'm involved in it, particularly because of the kind of nexus we can have between
Yes, the mediation,
and the
right.
NCA.
Very important. We would
So-
be very happy to have your skills and competencies
I
on
know
board.
about that, but so thank you very much, and thanks for coming.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure.